This is The Minimum Commitment, film theory in small doses, where glory has conditions and truth never leaves a clean scar. I'm Don Lawler, film scholar, sound obsessive, and a man who has wrestled with monsters in my own epic poem. Let's get into it. There are stories we tell because we need heroes. And then there are stories that unveil the transformation we undergo when those once heroic figures inevitably falter and fail, revealing our true nature in the aftermath. Beowulf is one of the oldest surviving stories in the English language. A tale carried across centuries from oral tradition to epic poem, to digital myth. And with each retelling, something changes. Not just the monsters, but what we fear they represent. It begins with celebration, music, poetry, the telling of names, a feast in Harrod Hall. Songs praising Hrothgar's greatness echo off the soot-stained walls. But beneath the surface joy, there's a stillness that feels rehearsed, a quiet knowledge that the past is catching up. This is not a kingdom at peace. It is a kingdom trying to remember what peace felt like. In Beowulf, the 2007 animated epic by Robert Zemeckis, monsters don't descend from the gods. They come from secrets, silence, and sovereign shame. They emerge from places built to keep truth buried. Their bodies materialize from darkness, but their origins begin above ground, with choices unspoken. But that is only their physical presence. Their true menace resides elsewhere, within dynastic concealment, in the lies buried beneath royal lineage, and in the allure of myth used to mask the corruption under the crown. This isn't a typical hero's journey filled with triumphs and victories. It's a cautionary legend cloaked in the illusion of glory, a reflection that knows better, acknowledging the complexities and darker realities behind the sparkle of gold and the weight of a sword. Post-structuralism in film isn't about tearing stories down. It's about revealing how unstable those stories truly are. Where structuralism looks for order, patterns, binaries, and meaning, post-structuralism steps in to question whether that meaning was ever fixed to begin with. Post-structuralism suggests that language is slippery, that the signs we rely on, words like hero, monster, and king, do not have stable meanings. They break apart under scrutiny, and their interpretations change based on who is speaking, who is listening, and what is being concealed. Beowulf enters this world already a legend. He claims battles with sea monsters and giants, boasting of glories no one can verify. And the people believe him, not because he's truthful, but because they need him to be a hero. Words transform into grand theater, where each utterance echoes like a performance on a stage. Truth shifts and shimmers, becoming a spectacle rather than an absolute.
Yes, of course, the sea monsters. And you killed, what was it? 20?
9. Last time it was 3.
The more he proclaims, "I am Beowulf," the more the phrase erodes under its own repetition. Language becomes ritual, not revelation. Words wrapped in ceremonial glamour, desperately clinging to meaning in a world that no longer believes. Beowulf's world is constructed around grand spectacles and heroic deeds, yet it is frequently challenged and tested by terrifying monsters that threaten its very fabric, revealing the hidden truths men often try to conceal, such as intense lust, cunning deceit, overwhelming pride, and the deep-seated transgressions passed down through generations. In the film, Beowulf is challenged by 3 monsters in total: Grendel, the cursed child of shame; Grendel's mother, the seductress of legacy; and finally his own son, born of deception, who returns in the form of a dragon. Each monster marks a phase in Beowulf's collapse, not just as a warrior or a king, but as a man who slowly loses the power of his own name. First, there is Grendel, a creature born from lies and deceit, King Hrothgar's shame. A secret, unacknowledged child, neither villain nor victim. He is a wound, a rupture in the Hall of Men, symbolizing Hrothgar's unchecked indulgence made flesh. His presence distorts reality, a symbolic inversion of the poetic harmony that birthed this legend, turning the noble art of storytelling into a visceral nightmare. Beowulf defeats that which others could not with strength alone, but with distance. Unburdened by the past, Beowulf sees Grendel clearly, a deformity to be outwitted, not a bloodline to be feared. Yet this victory isn't clean. Once a monster falls, another must rise. Then comes Grendel's mother, emerging from the shadows in a sudden, almost haunting stillness rather than outright fury. She appears as an imposing mythic figure, embodying temptation intertwined with an elemental power, symbolizing more than just maternal instinct, but also danger, resilience, and ancient, untamed forces. Her presence conveys a complex blend of strength, fierce survival instinct, and seductive allure, challenging traditional notions of maternal figures. Instead, she appears as a formidable and nuanced force in the narrative, reshaping our understanding of motherhood and the primal depths of nature's law. She whispers, offering power and seduction in impressions of control. Beowulf, despite his strength and self-mythologizing, is undone by compromise, trading lies and accepting a silent kingship. Grendel's mother symbolizes every secret curse and corrupted deal. The cost of pretending victory came without price. In her cave, Beowulf receives guilt, not glory. And finally, the dragon. It doesn't appear until years later. However, its fiery breath was ignited the moment Beowulf seized the crown, marking the beginning of its wrath. Unlike temptation, this monster embodies revelation, challenging and revealing truths to those brave enough to confront them. It is Beowulf's son, a secret offspring concealed in shadows, another truth fiercely denied and buried deep. And this time, there is no longer any illusion or glamour left to hide the reality. The dragon burns the world not because it is evil, but because it inherits a broken lineage, built on deception, pride, and masculine myth. When Beowulf faces him, he knows the end has arrived. Beowulf loses his arm in the fight, the same limb used against Grendel, and with it, the last of his false control. Each monster Beowulf faces isn't just a beast to be slain. They are complex manifestations of deeper symbolic themes. In this story, these creatures symbolize human failures in recognizing and accepting the consequences of one's actions, to resist alluring temptations that can lead one astray, and to break free from the shadows of one's inherited legacy. These monsters embody the struggles within each individual and the broader moral challenges that define the hero's journey. Animating Beowulf with full motion capture was more than a technological experiment. It was a declaration. Mythic tales thrive in unreality. Robert Zemeckis reimagines the ancient poem through pixels and precision, sculpting legend from light and code. The result is uncanny, epic in its scale, but eerily synthetic. We aren't watching a reenactment, we're witnessing a myth recalling itself. Zemeckis is using modern technology to design the language of legend. This isn't cinema that strives for realism. It's cinema that understands the shape of myth. The artificiality becomes a mirror. These characters lie to others, to themselves, and to the histories they leave behind. The world they inhabit is built on stories told louder than the truth. And in that way, the digital shimmer amplifies the tale. Every uncanny movement, every plastic appearance reflects a deeper fracture. A myth too fragile to exist in anything but memory. When Beowulf descends into the cavern to face Grendel's mother, he doesn't find a monster waiting to fight. He finds something far more dangerous. Seduction. She doesn't threaten him with claws or teeth. She threatens him with understanding. She speaks in riddles and enchantment, but she names him plainly.
What do you know of me, demon?
I know that underneath your glamour, you're as much a monster as my son, Grendel.
The illusion begins to crack. Beowulf came to this kingdom to become a hero, to be sung about and immortalized. But in this moment, what's offered isn't glory, it's power. A kingdom, a crown, the shape of legacy. All she asks is that he leaves the truth buried in the cave. She knows he will, because she knows he wants the story more than the truth. This is the breaking point, the moment where Beowulf trades myth for silence, and a curse is passed like an heirloom. This is where post-structuralist reading ignites. Beowulf isn't just choosing power over truth. He's choosing sign over meaning. The word hero becomes detached from the man wearing it. The poem may sing of victories, but the film lingers in what's unsaid. Everything that follows bends around this decision. The story doesn't escalate from here, it collapses. Beowulf returns from the cave a hero. Grendel is dead. The threat is over. A new story begins. At least that's the version sung in the halls. But we know better. We saw the bargain. We saw what he gave up to wear the crown. Years pass. The stories grow louder. The truth, quieter. Beowulf governs with strength. He wins battles, builds peace. But the silence between his victories speaks louder than his boasts ever did. There's no celebration in his eyes anymore, only the weight of a promise he regrets. And then, when the dragon stirs and fire returns to the sky, the charade can no longer hold. The dragon is coming, and with it the echo of a curse he set in motion years ago. Beowulf knows This is his to end. He tries on his armor one last time, not because he believes he'll win, but because he knows no one else can carry the weight of what he began. But before he goes, there's one more reckoning. Queen Walteo enters, not as a queen, but as the only person who ever knew the man before the myth. She offers him a way out. Take the young mistress. Let some new hero rise. Leave the weight behind. But of course Beowulf cannot. He's seen what happens when power passes unearned. And so, in that quiet room, he confesses everything. The weakness, the vanity, the seduction that changed everything. This is the heart of the myth. Not dragons, not kingdoms. A man facing the truth of himself in front of the only person whose memory truly matters.
Keep a memory of me. Not as a king or hero, but as a man. Fallible and flawed.
Whether Walteo can grant this request remains unspoken, but we feel it. In the way she looks at him, maybe for the last time. Not as a god or a warrior, but as someone she once loved, and still does. He was the strongest of them all, a name sung across mead halls and carved into the memory of men. But legacy is not built on victory alone. It's built on the truths we bury and the silence we keep. Beowulf killed the dragon, but only after allowing it to be born. His final act was noble, yes, but it was also penance, a reckoning. A man trying to end the curse he passed down. In the end, the age of men was never an age of heroes. It was always an age of consequences. There's a reason we still tell this tale, why it survived for more than 1,000 years. Beowulf isn't a story about triumph. It's a story about what gets lost along the way in the pursuit of it. An epic poem about silences and consequences. This is the age of blood and bone, a time of blades, bargains, and burdens that echo through generations. And Beowulf, for all his strength, power, and glory, was fated to walk the road that legends demand. That's your thought for the day. Minimum commitment, maximum meaning. See you next time. The Minimum Commitment is produced, recorded, and edited by Don Lawler. Music by Don Lawler.